Okay, guys, I'm getting ready for this MythLab. Okay, guys, I'm getting ready for this MythLab. Okay, so I'm locked in now. Let me turn down the volume of my music here just so you guys can hear me. And I'm telling you guys, man, this has been like a trying morning, man. This has been a very trying morning. Like, even my equipment's going crazy. Like, it's been tough, man. But I'm going to get through it. I'm going to persevere. And so this one I want to get into, like, right after that, right? I just want to tell you guys right now, this is actually a very personal myth lab for me, man. One of the first, like, ones that I've done where it's not just I like the characters. And I'll explain to you why. So I'm doing this outsider architect, and I'm going to explain to you what I mean by the outsider, right? Because this is a big thing, and each one of them that we're going to represent is these guys are outsiders by choice, like overall, right? The simplest way that I can understand it, right? Like, let's talk about the archetype. When we talk about the archetype, what makes all these guys definitively outsiders in their cultures? Right? What makes each one of the definitively an outsider? Now, Odin, we know about. So we're going to talk about three beings here and how their outsiderness forced the change in boundaries. Now, one, whether they originate inside of a system or outside of a system is a big part of it, and how they do. Now, Odin himself walks beyond the boundaries, and he stays on the outside. Enkidu was one who made men, who was civilized. He was an outsider, clearly, to deal with Gilgamesh. And then Amurru, he was a force that's even deeper than all this. He's called the Lord of the West. So let's talk about it. And I had a request to do Amurru, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, I will do requests a lot of times, especially if it's a deity that I'm like kind of interested in. And you know what, man, this is really bothering me because, like, I don't understand what's going on here. Even now, I just noticed that for some reason you want to use my wrong camera. And I don't understand that, right? You know, when you're looking at your image and like, why am I blurry here? And it's because you've got me on the wrong camera, right? My own systems were banging against me. So now that I'm set up. So I got on Nine World Chronicles, I was just checking my comments and all that. And I got this comment. And clearly the comment asked me if I could do the Sumerian deity, Amurru. And this is to, I can't remember what the guy's name. Let me see if I can find your name here. Right? This is to Yakmil 9. So you got 9 in there. Like my other video on Shiva, asked if I could do this deity on the Mesopotamia. Now, ordinarily, I do request. That's kind of not an unusual thing, especially if I find the deity to be interesting. But Amurru resonated with me, and this is because I just lost one of my really good friends, and that was his first name. We didn't call him that. His first name was Amurru. I think he spelled it with a singular R, and I'm not even saying that linguistically there. I don't know where his mother would have gotten the name Amurru, and we never called him that. But I always knew what his full name was. I knew his government name, right, because that's how deep we are together. And I just lost my boy a couple of weeks ago. So when you said the name, it resonated with me. It made me say, "Oh man, I really should do this, guys." Amurru is like this external force, and the name just coincided. So I felt like, man, maybe this is my boy speaking to me through you to get me to talk about him, to give him some shine in the show. And if that's the case, if you're working with my boy so he gets some shine in the show, all right, I'm with it. So I want to talk about him and why he's important, because he represents the Amorites, if I'm getting this correctly. So let's talk about him. Now, he, of course, comes from Akkadian culture and Martu culture, or Sumerian, at the earliest parts of their foundation. His name means the Westerner. So they were defining him as an outsider, which the Amorites were at the time that they came into this area. He is called the Lord of the West, right? Which clearly the direction from which they came. And he is associated with the nomadic lifestyle. the steep, the mountains, the pastoral existence. This was different because the nomadic people did move around the culture, so they were always coming outside. They were literally the outsiders, but they become very important. The Amorites over years, so Amurru, the Amorites become very important. And he's known for his symbolic staff, which we'll see. You see Odin with that staff again playing that wanderer. He is known for the horned animal, the gazelles. Again, they moved, again, these were nomads, so they moved as the herds moved. So he's typically seen in this format. Let me see if I can get an image of him that's actually better for you guys here. I do have that locked in. So this is him. So he's always seen in this bearded form. He's often shown with the horned crown, carrying a staff, and associated with the rugged terrain. And you can see this guy absolutely fits. This is the rugged frontierman, the earliest version of it, right? This is way before they started getting all kind of like modern tech. But this is what they really look like. So he represents the Amorites, a semi-nomadic people from the western regions who entered Mesopotamia and later became politically dominant. This was what important because they became the outsiders who became part of the system. And that's one of the way that we do look at outsiders. So he functioned as this divine embodiment of the nomadic identity. He represents non-urban lifestyle. I'm strictly urban. I have a very urban lifestyle, right? He is the opposite of that. His personification is external cult pressure on the civilization itself. So unlike structured deities, he is not tied to city governments. He's not tied to their temple systems. He's not tied to bureaucracy. He's not tied to any of the stuff that makes a civilization hold together. And that's always kind of the battle, right? Civilization is always fighting to defend itself from everybody who's not within the civilization. So he embodies through this nomadic lifestyle mobility over permanence. That was cultural thing. This was survival over structure. They went where they had to go. They made it very easy for themselves. This was about adaptation to the land, to the circumstance, to the animals versus control. So he reflects the integration of the outsider into the system. This is what they become. Now, this time period that we're talking about here, we're going to go way back. This is second millennium BCE. They migrated into Mesopotamia. Then there's the rise of the Amorite dynasties, including in Babylon. Now, in older Babylonian period, he becomes formally introduced into the Mesopotamian religion at the highest level. By later periods, he is absorbed into the broader pantheon structure with reduced distinct identity. So he becomes a bigger part. So he parallels his rise through the religious system and ultimately the pantheon system is a reflection of the way the Amorites settled into the area and became political. They got all political like, right? And that's really how they were seen. And not in an adversarial way. They were outsiders, but they were still taken in as a part of Mesopotamia. So there wasn't a lot, I'm sure some level of pushback, but there was not overall, that's not how we define the stories. Now, when you want to worship him, if you need to worship him, there's a very direct cultural evidence that has compared him differently from all the other major deities. His offerings, if you wanted to bring something to him to keep him happy, were all about pastoral life. So, anything that like staffs and furs, hunting weapons, gathering packs, things like that, all things with pastoral life, were going to be offerings to him. This is a recognition of the regions influenced by their populace, and he's later included in the broader Mesopotamian temple systems. So once you're part of the temple systems, you are 100% legit. So again, this is an outside god, and every now and then we hear of outsider gods, especially in Mesopotamia, because you saw the rise and fall of a lot of different people in Mesopotamia, one of the most hotly contested areas, because you had the Akkadians, you had the Babylonians, you had the Amorites. You had all these different groups, some of them that merged together. That's why we see more overlap of their deities than almost anywhere else in the world. Now, unlike urban gods, he didn't have a temple, a centralized temple for himself. He was part of the temple system, meaning he could be worshipped at these temples, but there are no large temple complexes that are built towards him like we would see with Zeus or we would see with Hathor in other periods. He had no large priesthood involved. Again, this was more about pastoral events, so he was not in the priesthood or seen through the priesthood as these people were ultimately seen. Now, theologically, he is a civilization's aware of the outside world is what they're seeing. It is the inevitability of cultural influence and change. That if you have a culture and it's large enough, like the city of New York, eventually you're going to attract so many different cultures that it changes your culture as well. That's what happens. Essentially, he represents that before it ever happens. So, or for the first time, right? Then we would see it happen. It was the same thing with like the Vandals. When the Vandals came into the Roman Empire, right? They were the outsider. They came in and they eventually changed enough that it wasn't recognizable as what it is. There are some key mythologies because though he personally is not he's not a story-rich deity. There's not a lot of stories about this guy. These were nomads. They were probably more oral tradition, so they weren't writing the stuff down. And what he represents is this marriage to Martu, who is obviously the structure. So what we're seeing is in this mythology, Amurru and Martu get married. She representing the urban values, he representing the nomadic and trying to get these things to coexist with one another. So it's a very interesting battle. And it's the reluctance of settled society to accept him because he was an outsider. So there is that. But this mythology that's written, again, this is myth. This is not real. It's only mythology. Eventually integrates these two halves into one. At least culturally, that's what they were going for. And it looks like, to some degree, that they did that. So he is not a dominant myth cycle figure, but he is reflected socially. He has another consort in literary traditions, but doing effectively the same thing. He is the distinction between nomadic versus urban. That's the two instances. People who were city dwellers and settled, or people who stayed more mobile. And this is where he is. He was viewed by outsiders with suspicion, but they could never get past their influence. So they were the outsiders who became so integral into the system that they couldn't be ignored, and that's how they gained political power in a system that moved away from warfare as much into more political system. This is what they were going for. Now, in mythology, he fits under outsiders force. So I would say like Ptah, he's in that vein. He's like the King Zeus type. He is the destroyer because they destabilize to facilitate change. So we're going to compare him to the other two, Enkidu and Odin, right? And we'll kind of see how they're integrated. And this one's different than everyone else because he was the outsider. Well, he's similar to Enkidu in the sense they are both outsiders, but we'll explain how the difference is. Now, the next one that we